Recording is started. You're going to kick. Oh, I am. Hey, everybody. What a great way to start. So exciting to see you all on a Tuesday afternoon. Most of you are probably closer to the West Coast with a 3 o'clock start. But here we go. We're so excited to talk to you today about the new ways of working in the WAFC Retail Management Intake and Application System. And we are going to take it away right now with a little bit of what you're going to learn and then the agenda. So today, what you will learn for sure is an understanding of all the different things that are going to change and a little bit of what stays the same, as well as how you will work within the new processes. And we are going to describe some really distinct roles and responsibilities for the WAFC, our employers, students, and the colleges. You'll be learning how the WAFC plans to communicate directly with you and with the colleges and the status of your students. And then we have some fun tools and resources available for you as well. So here's the agenda, starting with the new workflows to give you a big picture understanding of what it looks like, and then give you a sense for the day in the life of a student and also each of you in your company HR administrator role for the program. Again, we'll share some tools and the support that we hope to provide you as we go forward. Okay, the biggest thing, as you all know from the very beginning of this process, is the WAFC heard and listened to all companies and all colleges and board leadership. And what we learned is that we needed to take a more central role. So while there are students who are doing their thing, companies doing your thing, and colleges doing their thing, the WAFC is going to overlap like you see in this Venn diagram, so that we have an interface and an interplay with each constituent.
Okay, we would like to start at a high level and share with you what the process looks like. So what is the stakeholder workflow and who's doing the heavy lifting and when? So here's our plan. We're going to go through this as a high-level overview, and then we're going to take you into a deep dive as if we were a student and then as if we were a HR administrator. So the way you read this is the purple represents the company, the yellow represents the student, and the blue represents the WAFC. The green is the system, and the orange is the college. Before we jump into this a little deeper, I would like to share what the difference between a system and the WAFC is. So the system will look something like this, and only the WAFC will have access to the system. So the question is, how do you get all the information in the system? That comes from reports. And those reports we will describe in greater detail throughout this process, but it is access to OneDrive. So that's the difference between system and WAFC. Some people have been thinking about us one and the same. All right, so here's how the workflow goes. You campaign just like you do today. The difference is you're going to send your students to an intake form. We'll show you this in just a moment. Right now, we're only starting with new students, not continuing students, so you send all your new students to an intake form. Once the student fills out the intake form, the system will do an automatic push notification acknowledging their application. Then all their information is uploaded into the system, and we take that report and we put it into a OneDrive folder so that you have access, only your students, to see everyone who has applied. From there, you retrieve that document, you review it, and then we're going to ask you to notify us which students go on prepaid tuition. You then put an approve or not approve, you upload that back to the system, and then we put it into the system, and your students get notified. Are they on self-pay or are they on prepaid tuition or scholarship? So then now that we're kind of done with this, we need to give this information to colleges. So then we will do the same thing. We will download reports, We will put it into a OneDrive for colleges. Colleges will then help your students enroll into their college. The student applies to college, the college enrolls them into their classes, and then the college at the end of the semester sends reports to the WAFC through the OneDrive to let us know their academic status. This gets loaded into our system, and as it's loaded into the system again, we need to give that information to you, and we do that through reports in OneDrive. All right, this is very high level, so we're going to take it a next step, and then we'll take a pause. So that was the workflow. What we want to highlight real quick are what are the roles and responsibilities. So if we look at the roles and responsibilities just sort of bucketed, what does that look like? Well, the company's responsibilities is to campaign and then to let us know who is on scholarship. And we're going to tell you how to do that in just a minute. And then, follow the best practices to help retain students and help them to graduation. The college responsibilities they are an advisor on the college application process. We have gotten a lot of feedback. This is the most challenging part, enrolling or helping students apply to the college, because every college has their own unique process. So we are leaning on the colleges now. We'll tell them who their students are. We'll give them their email addresses. They help them apply. They then block enroll them into classes. They communicate with you when students need intervention, and they communicate with us their academic progress. Say that 5 times fast. Okay. The last thing is the WAFC responsibilities. We are your technical resource. All your students will be stored into the Apricot system. We will track and communicate information between you and the colleges. Now, that was a very high level overview. We're going to walk through a day in a life and show you what it actually looks like to be a student or to be a company, be yourselves an HR leader. At a very high level, any questions at this point? Okay, then let's walk through. We will have more breaks for questions in a few minutes. I'm going to be a student. I'm Andrea. I work for one of your companies and I want to be a student. What do I do now? Okay, day in the life of a student. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the student guide, and we will talk about where all these tools get accessed. How do you reach them? How do students reach them? All of this information is at the end of this presentation, and this presentation will be sent to you this week. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to go to the WAFC intake form, and the link is right here for you. And when I go there, it looks like this. So I fill this out. The first thing is they need to choose their college. You will notice we are being very intentional about which college they choose, because we want to make sure they're choosing your preferred college. So in the instructions up here, as we guide them along, that's one of the things we take note that they need to know. If they do not know who their preferred college is and they click on this link, this will take them into what we call a college finder. So if I choose, let's see, I'm going to be Albertsons Vons Pavilions today, and I'm in California, and it tells me all of the students that work for Albertsons Vons Pavilions need to sign up with Cerritos College. So I come back to this form and I choose Cerritos. I then finish completing all of the questions on this form, and there are a couple other things that you will note. As soon as I say I am a new student, I then say if I'm employer pay, tuition prepay, or self-pay. I then have more questions to fill out that will help you navigate your students. So who's your employer? information about where they work, when they were hired. And there are commitment questions, just like you ask your students, making sure they understand what they're getting themselves into. These are college courses. There's also scholarship questions because I said I'm on scholarship or my tuition is being paid by my employer. So making sure they understand they need to pass their classes. Do they have any previous college experience? If yes, do you want that reviewed by the college? They then have to sign this FERPA release form if they want us to communicate with you so that you could prepay their tuition. So they would do that here. I am going to do that and I would sign it. And then I would do the same thing here. And if I submit, I am now a student. And I'm not going to actually submit it because it is live and I would become Albertsons Bonds Pavilion's student. Yvette's counting them up. All right, so the next step, I'm going to get an email from the system that says, thank you very much for applying. This email comes from Social Solutions, which is the system. And then as a student, I'm going to go back to my step-by-step guide. And if I am in California, which I am, I'm going to obtain my California Community College ID. And then I'm going to come to step 3, and this will tell me I need to now wait for the college to reach me, and they will help me enroll. At the same time, my company is telling the WAFC whether or not I am a prepaid tuition student, I'm on scholarship, or if I am self-pay. And when the company provides that information to the WAFC, which we'll share in just a moment how that happens, once the system is updated, an auto-generated email will go to your student verifying they are on scholarship, they're approved, or no, they're going to become a self-pay status student. As a student, I'm now done until I hear from my college and become enrolled. So I'm going to turn it over to Cherie, who's going to walk us through the day in a life in an HR administrator.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to assume that I'm fairly new at this. And so I'm super excited that the WAFC has created something called a company playbook. And right here, you see a snip of the first step in the company playbook, which is that I'm going to get ready to campaign to add brand new students to the Retail Management Certificate program for my employees, my associates. And step 1 is not any different from what many of you do right now. You've been gearing up to plan a campaign. Some of you have even already started your campaign, but most of you have been waiting until we provided this information. I think what the key is here is for you to see that in this playbook, you see the little red circle down below, there's a link there that's live. It's a hot link that we will provide because this whole presentation will be given to you. And in this link is company resources. When you go there, it's a folder that contains this company playbook and several other items we'll go through. The next most important thing is that what we are trying to do by strongly recommending this time frame for campaigning is that Monday, or not, whatever date is, May 1 through May 21, there are some colleges who have brand new student early deadlines for block registration as early as June 1. A couple of them are the end of May. Because of that, if you know that your preferred colleges start early, then you will choose to campaign May 1 through May 21. If you're with a college that has later deadlines, we want you to choose to campaign June 1 through June 21. You don't have to do 21 days. You can do 14 days, 10 days, whatever you decide. But within that time frame, the WAFC is dedicated with our resources to monitoring and providing reports on a daily basis if needed. Some colleges will then be accessing the reports as soon as a week in to your campaign. So this is a busy time for everyone. The most important thing is we think this helps you align and create consistency in what you do. And in the bottom right corner of this slide, you see that at the end of today's presentation, we have a library of links in the tools, which include these resources as well as several others we'll talk to. Okay, on the next page, in the campaign materials and also right here on this slide are the QR code and the live link for you to get all of your new applicants to go to the WAFC's RMC intake/application form, which Andrea just showed you. We ask that you put these QR codes and links on all your campaign materials. We have them pre-populated if you plan to use some of our flyers and materials, but if you have your own already, then you'll want to add these to these before you send them out. That's the process that Andrea showed you. It is mobile friendly, which is a bonus. Coming back to that playbook, what am I doing next? After I've campaigned, I'm now coming back to the playbook and I'm looking at step 2, and I see that I'm going to be getting some reports. And we'll talk about how to download those reports in a minute. But when you do have access to these reports, you'll be looking at those reports to identify all of the people who applied and determine if they are to be approved on scholarship or not. Almost all of our companies do the prepaid tuition, so that's where the bulk of this presentation resides. But you will say approved or denied, and on each name, and then that will get uploaded, as Andrea showed you, back into your folder for us to then grab it to communicate with the colleges. In this frequency of reporting, you can see that it is aligned with your campaign period. During non-campaign periods, we will have a sort of a normal cadence with a weekly Monday update on reports. Sometimes there will be nothing, sometimes there will be something. But so that's really the bulk of what we would cover on the tracking of students. And this occurs each semester as you are following your students. Next slide. Okay, this is a deeper look at what the report will look like when you go into your company folder that we will give you access to, and you see all the names of the people who used the QR code or the link and signed up on the WAFC RMC intake form. Their names will be listed here with all the pertinent details that you typically want and need to identify who's your student. Are these your students? Are they still there? And are you going to approve them on scholarship? If your company does not prepay tuition, we still want you to confirm that your students really are active associates with you, so that as we track them through the system, and you will have access to their grades as well, assuming they filled out the FERPA form. Okay. Okay, in terms of accessing reports, very soon, you will all be receiving an email. If you were invited to today's training, then you will receive an email that basically comes from our WAFC system admin. That's the name of the email address. They're inviting you to access a folder that is in our secure encrypted OneDrive. You will then create a password when you are invited to access your folder, and from then on, you should be able to access that folder 24/7. You have maybe just you, maybe you have 2 names because you've always had 2 people on your team. Maybe there are even 3. So you know who you are if you were invited today. If you were not invited today, but were added to, somebody forwarded you this invite, you may not have received this. And because security is so important, data integrity is so important, you will have to get approval by whoever is the lead in the RMC program for your company, and then we will give you access. So that would occur through me or our MC admin. Here's an example of once you do have access to your own folder. Of course, we have access to all of the folders, but we have created a folder for every single one of our company partners. If for some reason we missed you, which is unlikely, but there were new companies being added, then we will address that as a one-off. But as you drill down, you can see that we've got layers to get to your current report that you would find. This one was listed in the month of April, so there will be layers to get into the folder. And this one is one for Smart and Final. We have 2 fake names in there, so we could show you what it looks like. And this is what the report would look like. So after you go through that initial campaign and recruiting and you give out the QR code and people sign up and we go through all the processes Andrea described at that high level, then your responsibilities in the system are essentially over, with the exception of going back and checking weekly to see if either the college or if you, the company, is making changes. Somebody who quit, somebody you know paused, never showed up. If you want to update that in the system, you can. If you don't, the college will absolutely be doing that at the end of the term when they have the same report from your people and they fill in the grades or the pass fail or the withdrawal. And that is how we will maintain and track through the entire 8 courses of each student, and that you will have access to it. Okay. There are 2 other areas we don't want to spend detailed time on right now because it's not happening right now. Within the system, we will track reimbursements and we will track who's going to be a graduate. And these are the 2 huge changes for all of you and some of us in terms of efficiency going forward. But we'll fill in those gaps later. We just really want to focus on the beginning now. Andrea, you want to touch on tools?
I'm going to hit tools at a very high level, and then we're going to open it up for some questions for you all. So we have some new tools available to help you campaign and to help you communicate with your students. So the first thing is some flyers and posters. So at the top here, you'll see there's 6 choices with different pictures, different communication. Pick the one that suits your fancy. You can even customize this, change the picture, whatever works for you. You also have 2 choices of the back side of the flyer. So this is more of a fact sheet, talks about what the courses are, what they'll learn, what the benefits of the program are, etc. This is also customizable to whatever works best for you and your organization. We have some optional posters. So these are testimonies from actual students. And if you wanted to put these on a monitor, your break room monitors or whatever, print them out, whatever works best for you. And then an optional fact sheet that has details about each of the courses. We also created a campaign, what we call the info session presentation. So this is the presentation that you would present to all your potential students, talking about what is the RMC program. This outlines it. It starts with a video of student testimonies that we filmed, and then goes into all the details that you probably all share every day, but it's just in a nice, easy format for you. And then there are 2 guides, one for students and one for you all. So if you get stuck, this is the place to come. Just follow the steps in this guide. So the question is, all right, well, that's great. How am I going to access it? So all of these tools and this presentation will be sent, this presentation will be sent to you, so you have it at your fingertips, but all these tools will be stored in what we call the company resources folder. If I click into this right now, you'll see that it will take me to a folder that everybody will have access to, and all the materials will be there for you to download. We also have a link here, so we call this the library of links. There's also the links to your report folder that we showed you earlier. And if you don't have access to it, it's because we most likely didn't know that you needed access. And so to ask for access, you would email this email address. The thing about this email address is that Cherie, myself, Linda, and another admin support that we just hired all have access to it and will be able to answer your questions. We also have some links and some tools for your students. We talked about the intake form. This is the QR code. If you wanted to scan this now, it's live. You can save it to your phone. We also talked about the College Finder. And then there's also the student guide that we spoke about, and materials about what if they need internet or low cost computer. This is a flyer that will help them access that. So when you get this presentation, if I were you, I would take this page and put it onto my desktop and save it, because when you're stuck and you don't know what to do, this is where you want to go. Now, a lot of these links won't be accessible unless you have this on your desktop, because you could see that they're all like automatic. You go right there. All right, that's all fine and dandy. What happens if if something's broken and I need it fixed? I need troubleshooting immediately. I need help. We're in recruiting. What do I do? We also have created what we call a help link to resolve issues and for you to give us feedback. Cherie and I and Linda, who's on the call, will be checking this. We and a new admin, which we'll introduce you to soon. We will be checking this multiple times a day during the campaign periods, especially the first week. Remember that the WAFC convention starts May 1st, right when we are all starting to campaign. So we ask that you give us about 4 hours to respond to you. We will be available during business hours. And so if I click here, what you will see is that you will just fill out this form that says, here's my name, my email address, and then give us a little bit of information about what is the challenge. And you submit that, and then we will follow up with you. Another option is for you to just, again, email WAFC system admin at wafc.com. We also will be conducting daily check-ins during recruiting periods. So during these dates and hours, Cherie and I will be on the call, just waiting to see if anybody shows up that has a question or a challenge or needs some troubleshooting. As example, May 1st at 11 o'clock Pacific time, we will be there to support you. We'll be on a call. We will be sending all the invites to you early next week, and you could show up if you need to. If you don't, just disregard it, but we'll be available. Okay, we're going to open it up for questions. Before we do, we would like you to scan this QR code and fill out this quick survey. We want to know when you're campaigning. Therefore, we know when to provide the greatest amount of resource or support to you. And I'm also going to put this in the chat. So hold on for 1 second, and I will put this link into the chat if you don't have your phone and can't access that QR code. Okay, there it is. Let us know when you're campaigning, and then we are going to open it up for questions. Cherie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, well, I have my first hand up. That's Yvette. So unmute and go for it.
Thank you, Cherie. Is there any way you can go back to the path page? That's still trying to sink in. Thank you.
So it's a good thing we had this right after that. We knew your question was coming. Again, when you feel like I'm missing something here, this is the process. Feel free to look at it, digest, and if you have questions right now about how this flows, you have time to answer it. So go ahead and look at that. Anna, while she's looking, or while you all are looking at this, what's your question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You said that students is going to receive an email, a confirmation email, whether it was prepaid or self-pay. Can you talk about the self-pay and what might cause the student receive an email? Can they reapply? Was that a mistake on their end?
Sure, that's a great question. Some companies have so many applicants that they cannot accept them all every semester into a scholarship program. And you make choices individually as a company or a division about what that means. So we have one company who does not accept anyone lower than a first level supervisor. But if I'm a clerk and I want to do it and I'm willing to self-pay, I still want to do that. So that's how you would let us know Sam Smith is not eligible because of our qualifications, so they would be on self-pay. And then we let Sam know in that auto-generated email. And if Sam says, oh, I'm going to be on self-pay, I think not, then maybe they won't continue. But otherwise, that's just one of many reasons. We also have some companies that do not offer the prepaid scholarship, and those companies, their students, you will direct them all to check self-pay, and then you have your own reimbursement or other processes that you use, but there won't be any reimbursement from the WAFC for prepaying the tuition in that case. Any other questions related to that or more? That was a great question, Anna. Yvette, what do you think in terms of the workflow? I should acknowledge that this is a paradigm shift to what many of you have been doing. We've been saying from the start that we know you campaign, but usually you vet your students before you have them fill out some sort of WAFC application. For most of our companies, if you don't have a built-in process that you are dyed-in-the-wool going to keep, this will be easier for you. If Colleen, you were the next one who asked a question.
Yes, I have a question. So let's say we have somebody that's been enrolled for a while, and then life takes a hard turn on them, and they don't pass a semester, and then they go to re-enroll. How with the system, you know that this is now going to be a self-pay semester for them, as opposed to a prepaid scholarship program?
Okay. What I heard you say is that sometimes you have students who start and for whatever reason, they fall out. Either they pause, take a break because of a life situation, or they get a D or an F and they fall into self-pay that way. They can continue as a student on self-pay. When a letter grade comes in or the fail comes in, they get notified that they have now fallen into a self-pay status. If they don't continue, we will know that when no more grades are being uploaded by the college, and that's how we know that they are either a paused student or on self-pay. But you will know that too, because they will still be in your system as somebody we're tracking. I'm not sure if I answered it all because it was a little crackly.
See, I got brand new technology here. I don't know. Okay, thanks. You did good.
Okay. Who else? I see Megan Lyle's question.
Hi. So I had took a little peek at the intake form for the College Finder, and I'm showing that only Fresno is approved for us, for California. It's just not updated yet, or should we only be pushing Fresno at this point?
Okay, let's talk about that. So your division operates in 3 different states, and if you had clicked Nevada, you would have found Truckee Meadows. If you clicked Hawaii, you would have found Leeward. The reason Fresno is the only college for Northern California Safeway at this time is because none of the other Northern California partners that you have used in the past have aligned with the new process, have agreed to work with our FERPA update and have agreed to handhold your students with the best practices. It doesn't mean that they told us, no, talk to the hand. It just means that either they're trying to figure it out or they're struggling and may never figure it out. So for right now, we ask that you go with the premier partners we've aligned you with, because we know you will have a positive experience with that community college with this, what I'll call a soft launch with new students for fall of 2024. Would that be okay, Megan? Does
Yeah.
that work for you guys? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I hope that answered a lot of questions, because I see Natalie and some others on the call that have multiple partners, and some of the people you have going to school are at colleges that have not responded to us with multiple requests yet. And again, we don't know why yet, and it's going to take some while to figure out whether they belong or not. Natalie, I think that might have been related to your question.
So I think I heard you say earlier that the QR code for the WFC intake form should be on our campaign materials. Why would we want them to fill that out before they've been selected? Did I just misunderstand that?
You understood it. We have companies that don't do any vetting at all, that take anyone who comes along. And for them, that's the easiest way to do this, is to just go ahead and put your own campaign materials out there and let the students apply. But since they're not applying to a college, what they're doing is expressing interest. And if once you send out the campaign materials and they express interest and use that QR code, it does not mean they're on scholarship. You have to accept, as you can see here, accept or decline them as a candidate. I'll be honest, we know that if you have a practice that works for you, that's a little bit of a hybrid of this, and you do this in 2 steps, you'll be tracking somewhat on your own until you give them the QR code. But this, over time, we're confident that this will smooth out and be the preferred method.
Yeah, so just to piggyback on what Cherie said, we built these processes based off the best practices of companies today. So I want to give a quick shout out to Yvette at Albertsons, Courtney at Rayleigh's, Alex at Spartan Fine or Shadrari, and Philip at Bristol Farms. So these are companies that we all have been relying on for good best practices, and so they were part of a team, a committee that would get together and help us create our new best practices. So they put a lot of extra time and effort into this. So thank you very much to that team. So what we learned from them is that they do have this vetting process, and the vetting process begins by collecting all the student information. So how do we best help you? We help you collect all the information on potential students, and then we give you that information and let you take action on it to tell us, yes, we're going to support this student and put them on tuition reimbursement or tuition prepay, or no, not at this time. So the whole purpose behind the QR code and taking this first step is to help you in a very organized, concise way collect student information.
So you're saying then that we wouldn't necessarily need to have our own application form?
You don't need to. If you choose to do this process differently, that's up to you, but you don't need to do that anymore. You don't need to try to manage students on an Excel spreadsheet because they'll all sit in the system.
Your application, if it is more comprehensive, maybe you have an essay, maybe you go ahead and put this QR code and the link out there, and these are your candidates. These are the people interested. And that's when you communicate with them, because their email and cell phones will all, the store number, everything will be there. And that's when you say part 2 is you fill out this essay, or part 2 is your store manager has to sign this form, which is one of the things some of your other divisions do to get additional supervisor support. You can reverse it, do it on your own and then send them into the intake form. But we're happy to track all, even if they never end up going. They were somebody who expressed interest. There's always a chance they'll come back around and they are now in the system. That's a really good question. There are a lot of ways to approach this, especially for those of you who have been doing it and doing it well. This is hard, and you may not want to make a full shift. That's up to you until you feel like, oh my gosh, now I get this. Or we know that the next person who comes along can't even fill your shoes. They'll probably say, heck yeah. Katie, you have a question.
So going back to the flow chart in the beginning, the first step that you have is the student filling out the WAFC application. And then they apply to the college later on. And when I clicked on the link, it shows that it's asking for the student ID in the very beginning of the application. So I'm kind of confused on
that's a great question. So we are debating removing the student ID. We originally, you may recall that we were originally planning on having them apply to the college, and that was a big heck no. So we're really glad that didn't happen. We believe that this is the right way to go. It's mandatory where there's a red star to fill in the college, but it is not mandatory to fill in the student ID. And we could go so far as to put in optional, like only if you have it, or remove it. We are really like 2 hours ago, we were debating this about whether the student ID is there at all.
Yeah, it's a risk. It's a risk in managing data, so we might end up just removing the student ID.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for like returning students, it would be good because a lot of returning students, and I don't know if there's a different intake application for a returning student. But I mean, some students do come in with previous,
Credits.
Credits. I don't quite see it from Fresno City College from where we're at because Fresno isn't in a heavily populated area for our division, at least for my area. So it needs some kind of, if you're going to keep it, something that kind of calls out that, only if you have it, because otherwise people are going to stop and be like, okay, but I got to apply to the college. So it gets a little confusing.
Yeah, that's excellent feedback. I think you're spot on. Again, it'll either be removed or we can strongly call out not necessary or optional.
And then I have another question. So I just want to make sure this is a soft launch. And so we're just kind of going with the premier colleges, but like some of my students have been, Fresno's on the short accelerated program. And so we were thinking about kind of leaning into our Solano partner a little bit more. They're not on this process. So you're not saying we can't use them at all. You're just saying lean into our preferred vendor, preferred college.
Okay, so that you called out one that specifically is trying hard to get themselves there, because I've told them you won't be a part of the program unless you get on the program. So but I would say the other option is to talk to Fresno about adding a full-length class if you're talking about a full 16-week class for fall.
Okay.
We're doing that with Cerritos. It's working. We just started.
Yeah. We can kind of talk a little bit more offline.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Good call out. Other questions? I think Anna.
Yeah, I had a question about associates who have a previous transcript. Is there going to be a section where they can upload that to see if they can drop some classes?
Actually, there is just a little spot where they check the box that they'd like to have transcripts reviewed. And so when the college receives the report, that's a call out for them to be very intentional and ask for their transcripts and tell them how to submit them directly to the college. They can also be forceful and tell them themselves in case the college misses that. But we won't be in the middle of uploading and downloading anything except for what we talked about in those reports. Great questions, you guys. Anything else? Katie, another question? Or is
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to ask it the first time. So when I scan the QR code, I don't know if there's maybe multiple pages, so I just can't see it. Number 2 in red at the top says, if you're going to be on scholarship, you need to have your employee ID number ready. But I don't see that on the first kind of selection here. I don't see a line where they put that in there.
It is in the company employee name area underneath the job title. Andrea is circling it right now. So it's way down.
Okay, so it must be on another page, like after I hit I'm not a robot.
Oh, so when you tried to do this from your phone, it skipped you.
Let me clarify. What happens is, if you scroll down through this, you'll see there's not a lot of information. But as soon as you select the application type, I'm new, and you'll see it goes straight to commitment and scholarship question. As soon as I say my employer is paying my tuition, that's when we start asking questions specific to you all.
Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you. And so it expands.
It expands over to, yeah, based on the answers to your questions. But here's the thing. The reason we put this up front is because this form does not capture the data until you hit submit. So what we are trying to avoid is having somebody get all the way down to associate number and say, oh my gosh, I don't have it. Let me go get it. By the time they come back, this is timed out and they start all over again.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Who was it? I just saw a hand up. They put it down. Must have been the same question. Anything else? Gina.
Hello, yes. So I'm taking a look at the intake form, and I noticed where you select the college you will attend, it does list the various Maricopa community colleges that we use. But if somebody were to click on the web page, if they didn't know and they clicked our Southwest Division, those colleges don't appear. So I guess I'm just confused on, okay, are they going to be accepted or are they not going to be?
Okay, so you are describing what happens if you go to the traditional retail management certificate.com website, which has a list of 50, 60 approved community colleges under our traditional system, as compared to this new College Finder webpage we created to
select. Actually, I did your intake form. So
right
here,
Cherie.
Number 3, where it says, if not, click here, this web page. I clicked on it, selected the various, what is it? The states.
Yeah,
and it showed, it narrowed it. Yeah, it narrowed it down. But on the actual application, where you fill out school details, college you will attend, it does list like Estrella Mountain, Glendale, Mesa Community College. So those lists don't match.
Okay, thank you, Gina. We are still making edits to the intake form. The pull down menu still has at least 20 colleges we are going to go dark on for right now. Yes, you have students at Glendale, Mesa, Gateway. Those colleges, none of them replied to us, not even Estrella Mountain. So again, this is a one-off, but it's a big one-off we are addressing right now in the division or in your division.
Just wanted to make sure, because I saw that on the intake form, but then when you go to that, it didn't match. So I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah. So I guess you can tell we're still building this plane.
Yeah.
Great,
it's easier to leave them on here for the moment, but by next week, everything will be matching. I mean, we're actively trying to work through it all. So by next week, this will match the College Finder.
So along those lines, we are hoping that you're intentionally calling out, socializing who your preferred colleges are anyway. Many of you do that. But for those, thanks, Yvette, for those who have people who are currently going to Glendale and Gateway and Mesa and all these other random colleges that are not going to be premier providers this fall. Anyone who's currently there is going to be taught out no matter what. And if the college gets on board, they will be added back. But for this fall, to have the best experience possible for your students, you want to lean heavily on the colleges that are committed to concierge service.
And Cherie, just to do a quick time check, we have 8 minutes left.
Okay. I'm totally appreciative of how much you're drilling down and looking so closely at this already. We are getting ready to send this presentation out to you by Thursday of this week and uploading some of those materials into the company resources. Any other questions for today? Katie.
I got one more question. So on the intake form, when I say when it drills down and gives me how the application type, right? And then it says, how is your tuition being paid? At this point, we don't know if the employer is paying for the tuition, right? Because they have not been approved yet. So I'm a little leery on how that question's asked. How is your tuition being paid, employer? I feel like the word request needs to be in there, like, because they're requesting that the employer pay their tuition. They're not getting that yet. That'd
That
be
is great. Yep, that's really good. Since we changed this a few times about how it was being approached, that's again, the accuracy is important. You know what it's like when they fumble through and don't fill it out right. So the chances of helping them get it right the first time are important. So we can edit that to clarify.
It's good feedback. Thank you.
Anything else?
I think that's it for me.
May not be, but that's okay. Great questions, everybody. Okay. All right. We have 2 more sessions of this. If you or someone else on your team didn't make it and they haven't yet accepted, tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning, and then next Wednesday morning at 8:30. That's the third one. We are recording all 3 sessions. The best of the 3 is the one that goes out, but the questions are great in all. Okay, we're going to be here for a few more minutes if you have more questions. Otherwise, I'm going to stop the recording.
Cherie, just want to reiterate real quick. This is a lot of information. If you, when you receive this presentation, if you are stuck, what do? Refer to this flow chart, this workflow. This will help you. Also, remember that you have your library of links. When you get this page, save it somewhere to your desktop so that you have all your links right at your fingertips. And then print this and save this, because this is your troubleshooting. This is your help desk. This is when we will be available for immediate attention during your campaign period. All right, Cherie, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and